up with steps 8 through 12. Our directions say sewing the back. Pin back pieces with right sides together. Mark at the 6 inch in the center, or 6 inches in the center. So we're going to take our back pieces. We have right sides. We're going to put together. I'm just lining up my ends across the middle and down at the other end. And we need to mark a 6 inch opening. To do that, we're going to take our yardstick. Because this is the 18 inch side, we are going to mark at 6 inches and 12 inches. And this area here is where we're not going to sew. So what I'm going to do is put 2 pins at those middle marks. To indicate where I'm not going to sew between. I'm just going to put 1 more pin at each end to hold it in place. And as we continue to read, it says this will be the area that will not be sewn closed. So this is our area that is not going to be sewn. And then we're going to sew the back seam, leaving the 6 inches in the middle. So we're going to sew from this corner to the first double pin, and from the double pin down to the other corner. So I'm going to go to my machine, which is already threaded. And we are going to be using the yellow tape to line up. So our seam is going to be lined up with the yellow tape. And remember, we are back stitching in the beginning and back stitching at the end. So as you get close, you're going to take out your pins. So back stitch, keeping lined up with the yellow tape. As I get close to my mark and those pins, I'm going to take the pins out. So to the mark, back stitch, and pick it up. Now I'm going to cut my thread. And always, just a reminder, cut your thread so it's long so it doesn't unthread as you begin to sew again. Now I'm going to leave this part open. I'm going back down to my second set of pins there. Take the pins out after I get it into my machine. Line up with the yellow tape again. Back stitch. All the way to the end. Back stitch. And that's done. So that was the back stitching. Now we're going to go back to our directions. Just cutting my thread and leaving it so it's long. And if you take a look, open the back piece. This is what it should look like with the center having a hole in the middle, which is fine. Okay, so our step 9 says sewing the front. With your 2 shorter pieces, the 11 by 5 inch strips, so these, the 1 strip that we had cut, with that we are pinning it to the photo fabric right sides together. So with my photo, it just depends on how you printed it, but I'm going to lay it this way, and it says right sides together. So if you look at the little diagram, it says photo fabric and 2 short front pieces, photo facing up and 2 front short pieces facing down. Line up and pin along the outer edges. So I'm going to line up with one of my edges, and because I do have this goofy end here, I'm going to line that up as part that's going to be cut off eventually. So I'm lining up to make sure that my photo is lined up with the edge of the pink fabric. So along one side and across the other. And I'm just going to use some of the pins that I took out. So always into the both layers and back up through. And I could also do my other one. So I'm going to do that the same way. So again, photos face up and my other one is face down. So good sides are together, lining up at the one side along the other side and pinning it in place. And then it says teacher check. So you would bring this over to me. I would take a look, make sure that you're pinned right, and it says if okay, sew the outer edge. So we're gonna do that. And you could trim this off before you sew, and then you're not wasting any thread or time. All right, so over to our machine. And again, if you want all of your photo on your pillow, like mine went from edge to edge, I had no outer edges. Some of you will have white along the outside. If you don't have any white, you might want to line up with the edge of the presser foot. If you do have a white outer edge, you might want to line up with the yellow tape. Because I don't have an edge, I'm going to line up with the edge of my presser foot. And again, back stitch when we begin. Stuck on. There we go. And just pull the pins out as you get close. Back stitch at the end. Cut it so it's long so you don't have to rethread. Flip it around. And again, line up with the edge of the presser foot here. Back stitch in the beginning. Keeping it nice and straight with the outer edge of the presser foot. And back stitch. And then we're going to bring it over, lay it down. And there you can see it's starting to come together. So our next step is going to have us take some of the long pieces. Now with the front pieces sew together, you're going to unfold, open the short pieces just like I did. So all good sides are up. Then we're going to lay the long 5 by 22 inch. So again, you're going to line up with one end and across the side here. Make sure everything's nice and smooth. And we're going to pin it in place. I usually pin to where my seams are next to my fabric first, because there's a little more material to hang on to. And all I'm trying to do is make sure it's nice and smooth right now. And I'm just going to flip it over to make sure I'm lined up, and I'm a little off here, so I'm going to fix that. And if this is off a little, that doesn't matter, as long as it's lined up with your photo all the way across and all the material is nice and smooth. And now you would have me check that again, and then it says sew along the outer edge on the long side only, not the short sides. So we're going to go over to our machine after we pin just the one side. And this time I'm going to line up with my yellow tape. It gives me a bit more room for a seam. So back stitch. Pulling my pins out as I get close. You can stop if you need to. Continue, just make sure you're going nice and straight. As I get to the end, I'm going to back stitch. I can see that's where my 2 layers stops, so I don't need to go all the way to the bottom with one single layer underneath. At this point, I could flip this over, trim off that excess piece. Then we open it up. And you can see we're getting there. Now, next, we're gonna do the same thing with the next strip. So it's the same idea as what we just did in step 16. Well, 14 through 16, but. All right, so again, lining it up here and across the side, pinning it. Make sure my fabric is laying nice. Then we would go over to the machine, and that's it for now.